everybody, to another episode of 10,000 Roads to Financial Independence. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Deborah Razo. She is an entrepreneur, real estate investor, concentrating on flipping, buy, and hold and lending. She's the founder of WREN, which stands for Women Real Estate Investing Network. She's actually got several chapters on this throughout the nation. She's always an independent spirit. Deborah started her first business in 1990. After owning several businesses, she realized that her path to financial freedom is through real estate investing, and her personal mission to teach others who seek growth and want to live life to the fullest. In 2009, she begins her journey with Tony Robbins, and now is a Tony Robbins trainer and traveling globally to provide on-site coachings to attendees. In addition to her degree from UCLA, Deborah expanded her investing education with a series of intense workshops. It felt like a natural transition to her, shifting gears from her design firm to a booming rehab business. She is currently focusing her energy on partnering with investors seeking financial freedom through the acquisition of real estate assets. Welcome to our show today, Deborah.
Thanks, Elisa. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. So Deborah's a good long-term friend of mine, but I'm actually very excited to dive into some of the things that we never talked about on this episode. And then, so we always ask our guests, the first question is, thinking back in your childhood upbringing, who or what incidents that shaped the entrepreneur who you are today?
It's really interesting because I only learned this after I had been in real estate for a while, but it's an interesting fact to find out that a lot of real estate investors are first generation Americans, and so am I. So my father is Hispanic. He was born in Mexico, and my mother was born in Dublin, Ireland, and they met during World War II and married. And so I'm very much first generation American. And I'm not sure how other families are raised. Obviously I'm raised in the one I'm in, but it's very much work hard, keep your head down, keep going. It's very much that kind of mentality. And so that is the mentality that I was raised with. And that's how I approached my first businesses. So I've been an entrepreneur for over 35 years, and I've had several different businesses. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, before real estate, which I've only been in real estate about 13, 14 years now. Before real estate, what I was really doing is I was actually creating a job for myself. And I think whether you are working for a corporation or whether you're an entrepreneur who's creating jobs for themselves,
right?
Right? It's the same thing, right? You're just creating income, and it's more transactional, right? Not passive income, more long lasting, not wealth building, really, right? But I didn't know any of that. I was raised in blue collar, keep your head down, work hard, and so when I started, my own businesses, I was really just creating jobs. And I'm really glad that I had that work ethic, and yet I feel like, educationally, I didn't have that, think big, think passive income, think wealth building, I had to learn all of that. Yeah. So, it's two different sides to the same coin.
Right, exactly. And then, so how did the first instance where you're, meeting starting your unthink process,
Right. Well, it was forced upon me. Like most change for people, it's kind of forced upon them. So I had a terrible car accident. I was in a terrible car accident, really spontaneous. I was driving with a girlfriend. I was the passenger, and we had a blowout, just a tire blew. And she lost control of the car. And you know how on some freeways, there's a lane, and then there's dirt in between?
Right.
But we went into the dirt in between the lanes. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, good, we're not going to hit anybody, right? Here's news for everybody. Don't go into the dirt when you have flat tires, because the rim actually dug into the dirt and flipped the car.
Oh, wow.
So it flipped the car driver's side first. So I got the impact of the crunch. And so I was trapped in the car for several hours, and I had a head wound that was bleeding out, and they didn't know what other damage that I had. But after, I think, about 45 minutes, they finally got a helicopter airvac to me, and I was taken to the hospital. And they stitched up my head wound because I was losing blood so fast. and they told me that I had a broken neck.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of a very long journey for me. First, the healing journey. Second, I was an entrepreneur.
Right.
If I didn't work, money wasn't coming in.
Right.
I had 2 kids at the time going through high school. And I was like, what am I going to do? And I jokingly say sometimes when I tell this story that, I had an opportunity to start over. And the truth is, we all get those opportunities in our life, right? Like some people might be going through it right now, just post-COVID, COVID turned the world around and now they're, making some different decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
This turned my world around. And at the end of my recovery, it took me about over a year to physically recover. Towards the end of my recovery, I was asking myself, is this really how I want to live my life? I had a different value of life.
Right.
Like I felt like I was so nose to the grindstone that I wasn't enjoying life. And I was like, you know what? Life is short. You don't know when it's going to end.
Right.
Like you better grab it, baby.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So I was very much in that space. And I was like, I don't know how to change my life. Right. Like I had done the same thing over and over again for so long. I didn't know how to change. Mm-hmm. And it was my brother who said, well, I've been going to Tony Robbins things. Why don't you go to some Tony Robbins things? And, I did some other personal development too. It's not just him, but I had to learn how to change, and what I wanted was, passive income. Like, I was like, wait a minute, I'm not getting time with my children. I'm not getting time to travel. I want to see the world. I want to enjoy other people's company. And I was so busy on that wheel of work that I wasn't doing any of that.
Right.
And so it really shifted things for me. But, I think in a lot of people's lives, there are shifts. Sometimes it's a divorce, right? Sometimes it's the death of a loved one. It just shifts you and you go, wait, I'm not going to do this anymore. I want to live differently.
And that's when you feel like it's the most vulnerable. So for a listener over here who is living, through paychecks and etc., you could be very well off by making a lot of income today, or for small business owner. But then when you're not unable to work, it becomes very obvious the position is pretty vulnerable. Yeah.
Well, and when do you get to enjoy life?
Right.
Like I know a lot of people who have fabulous paying jobs and really enjoy the work. And are you able to do it on the road? Are you able to do it and enjoy life at the same time? I am now. I'm location independent now.
Yeah.
I can do my work from wherever I want. And I've made my life that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Those are choices that I've made. And and I think, and I love being able to offer those choices to other people too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To say, okay, well, what about your long-term wealth building? What about
Right.
when you don't want to work 80 hours a week,
right? Exactly.
Maybe cut it down to 30 or 40.
Right, exactly. Or for people who are like high achiever like you, you may be working more hours. Who knows, right? Like I may be working more, but it's a choice. It's a freedom of choice of where you want to work, how you want to work, who you want to work with.
Totally a freedom of choice. And I can control things. Like I can work on a project and then go, hey, I'm going to take this month off.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. So tell us a little bit about, so you went to Tony Robbins, so there was a little bit of thing that happens over there. And they mentioned that you're Robbins trainer. So tell us a little bit about that experience, and for folks who hasn't gone to Tony Robbins, events, it's a very interesting experience that I personally haven't gone yet, but definitely on my agenda list to do. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's, he is a very dynamic presenter. I mean, you can say that for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that he teaches are other people's discoveries about us as humans, our human process. And the fact of the matter is he's an entrepreneur. So he actually attracts a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say it this way. I've met a lot of people and maybe they're highly successful in business, but they can't seem to maintain a relationship. Right. Or or they've got an incredible relationship, but they can't seem to get over this milestone in business. I'm just using those as examples. And, you look at yourself and you go, I'm a smart person. Why can't I seem to get this? you know, and he breaks that down for you.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, what are your thought processes around this? What are your habits around this? How is this working for you in your life? And helps you break that down. So once you see what you've created, you can change it, right?
Right.
So it's not like he's changing it for you,
Right.
you know, and that's one of the things I love about the process is like he's looking at how you're doing things and you're doing the work. You know, you're like, oh, this is how I'm consistently getting to this point, you know?
Yeah.
And then what needs to adjust to make that a different outcome, you know? And what do you need to do that? Do you need somebody coaching and accountability? Do you need to surround yourself with a different set of people? You know, there's a lot of components that go in and he goes through that. First course for anybody out there that hasn't, you know, experienced him is Unleash the Power Within. And that's a 4-day course and it breaks down some of the technologies, but his Date with Destiny, which he only does once a year, is a 6-day course. And I'm going to tell you that, you know, it shifts things for people. It really shifts things for people. And like I said, again, it's not like he's telling you what to do. He's breaking down your own process and you're writing down your own process and you're seeing, you know, we jokingly in the environment go, oh, this is how I screw myself up. Like we break it down and we're like, okay, now I can change it. Now I see it, you know, we can't change what we don't see, you know?
So how did that then incidents happen before? Give us a kind of example. You were working in
I had a boutique design firm. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I had a graphic arts firm.
Oh, graphic arts.
So I'm here in Los Angeles and I love the music industry. And I started actually as an artist in the music industry designing album graphics.
Oh, wow.
And then I branched off on my own. I was working for a label when I was young and I branched off on my own and started my own boutique firm. And we did albums and DVDs and book covers, mostly like entertainment packaging, really.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that all the industries I just mentioned have kind of not gone by the wayside, right? Like they're gone now. Yeah. But it was one of my base businesses. I had other businesses too that I was involved in, technology businesses and things, and I've had businesses that I've sold off and made money, and I've had businesses that have gone bankrupt. So, it's the entrepreneur's life.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's there's so much to unpack over there. So what are your business now that you now shifted, and how is it kicking off passive income for you so that you have the flexibility of work or not work?
Right. So after my accident, I literally started Googling passive income.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you do that? A lot of stuff comes up, royalties, all kinds of things come up, but real estate kept coming up. And that's when I started, really trying to think about like, okay, is this something I want to do? And I started educating in it. And now, granted, I just told you, I had not worked for a year and I had depleted a bunch of my savings. I was not in a great shape and I needed to gain capital. And I was educating at the time. And I remember one of the people said, you need an investment philosophy.
Yeah.
And I was like,
interesting.
What is an investment philosophy?
Yeah, what is an investment philosophy?
I don't even know what that is, Yeah. And we sat and talked about it. And it's basically a plan. How are you going to get from this point to the next point?
Uh-huh.
And I knew that my outcome was passive income. And I mean, whether it was from fear or whatever, I was like, I want an independent lifestyle. I want that passivity coming in. Right. But I knew I was going to have to work for the capital to invest for the passive.
Right.
And I was enamored with flipping shows. Right.
Yeah.
Who isn't? HGTV is, my best friend. And I borrowed some money from my brother and, I flipped a property and I made some money. Yeah. And I was able to buy my first single family in Memphis, Tennessee, which is I'm from California. So it's, a lower price to get into that property, and you get cash flow there where you
Higher
didn't get
cash
cash flow.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And that was my investment philosophy for quite some time. And then I increased my skills, right? Like, I'm used to running a crew now, and I'm used to the, handling a manager, a property manager now. And I have these, these properties in this other state. So then I buy a duplex in Memphis, and I'm like, ooh, I like that, one roof, two renters. And then I'm like, ooh, multifamily. Right.
Yeah.
And my first venture into multifamily was investing in somebody else's deal and seeing how they did it, how they worked it, how they looked at their numbers, how they did all of that. And then, at the same time, I'm growing and learning other things, and I start venturing into development, right? So I developed a couple fourplexes here in Los Angeles, and then I started investing in multifamily, and it's just been kind of growing over the years. And I'll just tell somebody, tell you all what somebody told me right at the beginning, is that you hold on to property and equity happens.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't, like, I feel like sometimes, like, I felt like I was going for a long time, until I really started to see how equity can build your wealth.
Right.
And equity can build your portfolio, and how over time, when the tenants are paying down your mortgages, and equity is happening, and you're gaining value on your properties, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, this is cool.
Yeah. Equity certainly helps grow wealth, and then cash flow helps you retire. I would say. That's awesome. That's quite a bit of circle. I'm kind of just noting down a few circles over here. But tell us about your first investments into fix and flip. Like, how did you find your first deal? For some, our listener just started in the beginning of the cycle, because you've done flips, developments, being landlord, basically passive invest, getting the multifamily stuff as a passive investment into multifamily, as well as probably holding a few small multifamilies and gaining incomes from there. So out of all these different options, right, for someone who started, because the other day I was talking to people that would just get started, like, which way do I go? Do you have suggestions for them?
I do, because first of all, you got to dig in and go somewhere, right? So if something has your attention and you feeling an urge to try it, do it. And I'm saying feeling an urge, not just financially, but actually, like, you think you're going to like it,
right?
Because there's other areas that I've tried that I haven't mentioned that I don't do because I don't enjoy.
What are some of these examples?
See, you were going to dig there. A lot of people make great money in non-performing notes. And I tried it. I don't like it. It's very litigious. There's nothing to decorate. It's not me.
Yeah. Okay. Like, not the physical aspect of what is the notes, right?
It's really a long process to me, and it's very drawn out and very litigious, and it's not something I enjoy. Now, I do invest in notes, but they're performing notes, or I create notes and that kind of thing. But learn what you enjoy, right? I have a friend who tried to flip, and she hated it. I still really like it, so learn what if you think that you have, like, you can find some enjoyment in it, yes, do that. And then I'm just going to say, do something. My first flip, I got a mentor, and I financed everything. He took me through every process, and we split the profit at the end, right? Best money I ever spent, really, because he was there every step of the way.
Right.
And, I got my first flip from a wholesaler, right? I bought the contract, and I paid this wholesaler $30,000 for that contract, which killed me at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm white knuckling it my whole first flip. And I, like I said, I come from this blue collar family. So then hard money, I thought hard money was like, oh, that is like some kind of mafia money or something. Why am I paying that amount? Right. Like but you learn like, oh, well, I can still pay this and and get the money. Get the money that I need at the end of the whole thing. And it's all a learning curve, right? When you're doing that. So that was really interesting. And that's how I did my first flip. And then I felt very equipped to go on and start doing flips. And then I honestly, my first, single family buy and hold I did with a turnkey operator, because I thought I'm going to learn, how this works. Right. And then I started going in and buying foreclosures in that market and utilizing some of my, rehabbing background to just fix for rent. And then I'll tell you, I did something kind of weird. I hired a different property manager for each of my units because I wanted to see how different property managers managed.
Of course he did. Yes.
Because I didn't know anything, and even their contracts are different, right? And some were better at some things, lease up, and some were better at maintenance, and some were better at this, and I was learning how to manage them from afar, right? So I felt like that was a better way for me to get educated, So I started doing that. So I would suggest to anybody who wants to get in, first get in, try to do something, get a mentor if you need to, get some accountability at the very least, some support. And that's what WREN is all about, the Women's Real Estate Network, right? So I was banging my head against a wall at one point. All the hedge funds had come in and they were buying a bunch of the properties here in Los Angeles, and us flippers were having a really hard time securing anything. And I was like, where are my girls? I just want to hang out with my girls, And I had a brunch with some women who were full-time real estate investors. And it was great. Like we all were like helping each other. Oh, you need an attorney for this? I've got that attorney. Or you need you need a foundation guy, I've got that. And that's how the Women's Real Estate Network started. It's women real estate investors supporting each other and sharing resources and a glass of wine when you need one, because there's definitely should be wine in real estate.
No whining, but wine. Yes.
No whining, but wine. Sometimes a few tears, but wine, for sure.
Absolutely. And then you made kind of your shift into multifamily. It is amazing that you did flips, you did turnkeys, but you also did self-management, and then switching into passive investments. Because oftentimes the crutch that the flippers has is the fact that they want to be in control. So switching into passive investment, which is an entryway to get into multifamily, because now you have to trust your team and let go of your control. So another exercise you did over there. So why, switching into passive investment when you have a successful flip business?
Right. Because having a flip business is having a job. I mean, I try as I might and trust my team as I do, it's still like working, it's still that. And I always knew that my end game was passive. Now, I say that, and I really love what I do, but what I even love more is being able to choose what I do and when I do it. And I'll take on a flip now if it presents itself to me and the timing is right for me, right? And it's going to fit in my schedule the way I need it to fit in my schedule, which is a choice I didn't have in the past. Right. When you're flipping, when you're only flipping, and I do know a couple of flippers that have structured their system such that it does run a lot, but not completely without them, whereas you can set up things with rentals where it can run pretty smoothly without a lot of daily touches, So I always knew that would be my outcome, and that, that's why I took some of the capital and was like, okay, I'm going to put this over here for passive and long-term growth in wealth.
So it was kind of like your master plan. Then you have this kind of roadmap mapped out, and it was kind of like your passive you know,
Yeah.
it's the way to kind of switching to the
Yeah.
passive, right?
Well, and the way to have choices, because I'll just go back to the car accident.
Right.
It was like, wow, it was really apparent to me that if I don't work, this job that I've built, then I'm not going to have the choice. I can't choose to take August off with my kids.
Right.
Right. I can't choose to, take, because it would be based around the deadlines that I had at the time,
Right.
right, of my
Yeah.
clients.
Right.
And that's kind of how flipping works, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if you're in a flip and it's over Christmas and you're having to meet inspectors or there's something that's going wrong on the site, you got to make those choices of how to deal with it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, yeah. That's
Yeah.
why I did it the way I did it.
Yeah, and I think that's very intentionally, because I remembered a couple years ago when I attended a WREN meeting and you did this exercise about setting up your goals. And that's like a 5-year goals, the manifesto of yourself. And I think that's like a part of these exercises and then wonderful things that WREN has bring, which helps you like maps out where your lifestyles are and also what are the vehicle that you're going to use to achieve that. So
vehicles and resources and and that's whatever you're doing, participate in a group that is going to inspire you to do that.
Right.
And I, sure, I have WREN and I love my women and I met a woman developer, which actually opened my eyes to like, oh, I could be a developer.
Yeah.
I didn't see myself like that. And now I did, right? But also I belong to masterminds and all kinds of things because I want those people around me that are, doing something that I think is fascinating. And I think, how do they do that? And how could I do that? And
Right.
could I implement that? And yeah, I mean, it's always really great.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then so talk to us a little bit about going from flip to development. So what are the things that you learn? Because developments for me continue to be like just like overwhelming. I'm like, where do you even start?
Wow.
I
was given a really good piece of advice. Now I know that I think we met at WREN in Seattle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And there was another woman at our Seattle WREN, Lindy.
Lindy. Yeah.
And she was a developer.
Right.
And it was in this conversation that like changed my mindset, right? Like we all need mindset shifts, right?
Yeah.
That changed my mindset. And I was having a discussion with her and I said, oh, you're a woman developer. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she said, well, you're a flipper, right? And I said, yeah. And she goes, I used to be a flipper. Developing is so much easier. And I go, what?
Yeah. What?
And she goes, here's the thing. It's all in the front. Like it's a lot of detail work in the front. It's a lot of regulations. It's a lot of going back and forth with the city and the architects, and it's all in the front. But then once you get all that stuff approved, it's just building ground up.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. And I remember with my first development and going through all the back and forth and all the stuff that goes on. I mean, you have to know a lot more about where you're developing. So, like the city, and if it is open to developers building, right? I live in Los Angeles and there are a lot of different suburbs and not all of them act the same way to build, right? So you got to know having the right team. I think having the right team in anything in real estate is so key, but having the right team in development is having those expediters that know the people in the city, having having an architect that's already has multiple plans through the city, right? And then, dealing with all the engineers, it is a huge team, the development team in itself. So, just knowing that and knowing that, okay, I'm going to have my own certain team here. But then when you get to the build stage, that's a whole different team. Now, I was already comfortable in that because I was already comfortable dealing with contractors and framing and electrical and rough plumbing. And, that was already okay for me because I had already gotten that experience in my flipping experience. Right. So what was really new to me was that whole pre-process and learning that whole pre-process, and then, and then the post-process, which is also getting your certificate of occupancies, which once again, you're back at the city,
So you deal with a lot of government stuff
Right.
related.
And zoning, like you
Zoning.
gotta
Yeah.
like find out about zoning and learn about zoning and, figure out what is the best use for the property. Believe it or not, I'm a very conservative investor.
Uh,
And this was high risk to me,
yeah.
and I was like, okay, for me to feel comfortable with this, I need to find multiple exits so that I can know that I can, if
Right.
this doesn't work, the first thought doesn't work, then I can do this and this and this,
Yeah.
and I suggest that for anybody that's investing, always have some backup plans,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then you moved to multifamily, which is another rim over here. So oftentimes a lot of people that I talk to, and then they always say my ultimate goal is multifamily, and then I start from flipping. So obviously you showed the whole path is possible. Definitely run about of ways to do it. But would you say for someone who their end goal is to be invested in multifamily, what's the best advice you have for them? Now did everything that you like housing related, right? Like you have pretty much done a lot of variety of it. What would you say like a best path for them to move forward, or more the accelerated path?
Like I feel really great in the path that I made, and that is first invest in it.
Yeah.
Go with a sponsor that knows what they're doing. Ask a lot of questions, from that sponsor, so that you can learn what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Right. And there was a time that I was reading a lot of multifamily investors' PPMs, which by the way, put you to sleep pretty well.
Yeah.
I was reading them because I needed to see how they were structuring things differently so that I could ask questions like, why did you weigh? And I saw other people that do this that way, that you can learn first. Right.
Yeah.
And it's through that learning that you get to a better understanding of how things are run and what your comfort level is with that, how they're going to run. So, I mean, that's how I learned. So I don't know. I did take classes too. I took classes with a couple of the big gurus and, to learn how to look at numbers that way.
Right.
I mean, I was going from single family to multifamily, and I was investing in larger syndications. And so I was like, I don't, how do you scale this and what's important? And so I highly recommend, getting with a sponsor and, going for a couple deals and understanding how they're running numbers and asking those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what is your long-term goal or midterm goal? Like I'm gonna ask back to your question. What is your 5-year goal?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Or 3-year, 5-year, whatever midterm for.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer that 2 ways. Okay. First of all, I'm going to answer it one way. There was a woman I met. She had a 16 unit available in Galveston. It's funny what you remember, right? She had a 16 unit available, and she was like in her late 80s. And it came to me through the deal came to me from a wholesaler. And I said, well, I want to talk to the woman. I want to learn more about it. And I, because I wanted to get under contract. And I got on the phone with her, and I was told before I got on the phone with her, well, she doesn't really know a lot about what's going on at the units.
Right.
Her son, who's in his 50s, kind of runs them. So don't ask her a lot of detailed questions. I get on the phone with her, and this woman knows everything that's going on. She talks to the manager on a weekly basis. She knows who's doing what and how their marriage status is. And like she knew everything. That's funny. Had the numbers rolling off her tongue,
Yeah.
And, I'm asking her why she's wanting to sell, and her husband is sick and she needs to take care of her husband. She wants to, lighten her load a little bit. And I didn't get the property, but I got off the phone and I thought, that's going to be me when I'm in my late 80s.
Oh man.
Right. Yeah. I really love real estate. I really like it. And I like, that can be me, like it doesn't have to take over your life, but it can just be this constant in your life. And I love that. That being said, my kids have been raised.
Yeah.
And, I'm getting a little older now, and I want some more flexibility in my lifestyle. And I have shifted my life so that it is more location independent.
Right.
So I'm making some more changes to make sure that the income is flowing in. My passive income is high enough that I'm maintaining the lifestyle I want,
Yeah.
so that I can have so I can choose my projects.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
that's where my 5-year goals are going. And, there's some things I want to do and see. I'd love to see the Aurora Borealis.
Yeah.
I'd love to, like it's time for me to kind of venture out and do some of those things on my list.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned about your kids. And then we always ask our reviewer too, like, listen, like basically, what are you doing right now, or what do you have done, because your kids are more grown? What have you done during their upbringings to teach them to be more financially literate?
Yeah. Wow. I'm really lucky. One of my children ended up being an accountant. So, she already has a literacy in finance, but yet she hasn't invested in real estate yet, which, my kids are at that point where they just graduated university and they're getting their first jobs. And I have one child who's getting a doctorate, so he's still getting in university.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've always, I think, as a parent, I thought it as a parent when I was younger, I want to give them the things that my parents couldn't give me. Like I said, my parents were very hardworking, but we were, not wealthy by any means. And, everything was on a budget and, thought out before it was paid for. And I think I tended to be that way. And then I realized at some point, I'm like, no, I think there is value to them working for stuff, right? And figuring things out.
Right.
And so, I put aside some money for them when they were going to university. And I said, this is how much is the contribution.
Right.
And if you do this, this, and this, you should be able to make it through university without debt.
Right.
But it's up to you to do. And they both chose different ways to do it, but they were able to get through without debt. My daughter actually ended up taking on a little debt, but then she paid it off.
Yeah.
So they are the captains of their own wealth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess one of his kids was like, something about us, hey dad, because we're rich. And he goes, no, wait, I'm rich.
Yeah.
You're not. Let me be really clear,
Yeah.
And I think sometimes for kids that line could be blurred. I remember taking my kids to a resort at one point, and it was really kind of a resting place for me. And I could see the pool and the taco stand and the trampoline right from. I didn't have to move. Right. I was like, I'm good. I'm going to sit here with my book. But boy, it was a quick learn for the kids to say, charge it to the room. Like they learned that like that. And I'm like, they're very comfortable with that charge it to the room thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like you realize like, okay, they just think, I don't know, it's free. I don't know what they think.
Right. They have to earn it. Yes, exactly.
So, it's there's a balance there. And I think you have to just find it. And you have to find it for each individual kid too, because each kid. Right.
I love Shaq's quote over there. I'm gonna use that to my oldest one.
I'm rich. You're not.
You're not. Yes, exactly. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so lastly, and I wish we spent more time on talking about it too. Like, tell us a little bit more about WREN and like how is it expanding now, and what are some of the ways to participate in that?
Oh, absolutely. So, like I said, I touched on how we started. And we actually, those women that I started with the brunch with, we just started meeting on a regular basis because we enjoyed each other's company and we were getting so much out of it. And we opened our homes and brought wine and cheese and, had a night of real estate and women. And then I realized I got to see these really cool, powerful women who inspired me, honestly. I was like, wow, they're kicking ass. I better kick some ass to keep up with them, right?
Yeah.
I got to see them, but there was this whole group of other women that didn't even know they were existed, because
Right.
the fact of the matter is that most real estate clubs, a woman maybe, is at the front of the room once a year,
Yeah.
So
I was just at an event last week, and this is for like the VIP clients for lending company. And literally I looked throughout the whole room and there was like not a single, not many other women at all. Yeah.
and even some of the events that I've been to for, as an investor or something like that, you look around the room and there's a certain amount of them that are wives that have come
Yeah.
for the free trip. And there's a certain amount of them that are women investors. Right.
Right.
And anyway, I realized that there was a whole group of women that didn't even know these women existed. Right. So I'm like, let's give them a platform. And I just started a meetup in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so we started having these women, and they would talk at the front of the room about their business model. So whatever it is, whether it's multifamily, whether it's flipping, whether it's mobile home parks or storage units or whatever it is.
Right.
And then they would also talk about being a woman. And because let's face it, we're juggling a lot.
Right.
I remember being at an event one time, and I was at the back of the room, and I looked at my watch because I was like, is somebody picking up my kids?
Right.
Like, it was like that. It was like that right after school hour. And I was like, somebody picking up my kids. And I looked up, and the guy that was speaking, I knew had children and stuff. And I thought, I bet he doesn't. I bet there's not even an internal clock that goes off inside of him that says, is anybody picking up my kids?
Right.
We have a lot going on, and aging parents and things that we're dealing with. And it's just refreshing to see women who have figured out some ways to navigate it that are, doing real estate and succeeding.
Yeah.
And then I had a girlfriend who was up in Seattle. So Seattle was actually our second chapter. And that all started to spread. And then of course, with COVID, it's been a little more limited because we've only been online.
Yeah.
And we're just now this year toying with more in-person events.
Yeah.
But we're just starting out quarterly because, well, the COVID restrictions. It felt like last year. It's like every time the COVID restrictions receded, we'd start to get something planned, and then COVID would pop up again,
Right. Or the regulation thereof. Yeah. And then I believe currently you have a chapter in Seattle, Los Angeles, Phoenix. Where else? Yeah.
Phoenix, Atlanta, Austin, Orange County, San Diego, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
We have 11. I can't remember.
Yeah. Awesome. And then we'll definitely put the links to join on the bottom show notes over here for folks who want to kind of connect.
JoinWREN.com, join WREN.
JoinWREN.com. Yeah. Awesome.
Website is RenInspires.com. In fact, we can be found everywhere at Ren Inspires.
And then you have an annual conference as well, usually.
Our last annual conference, we had over 250 women there, and we had vendors. And I mean, the thing about catering to women is like we not only have the real estate vendors, but we had a massage chair vendor there. We had all kinds of like pampery stuff too. Right? So it's a good group of women, and they're fun and they're smart, and I always get tidbits from when I come to the events and have the event.
That's awesome. And Deborah, once again, how does people contact you?
Oh, you can contact me at drazo@reninspires.com.
Awesome.
Or you can go to my website at deborahrazo.com as well. And there's a button to, have a 15-minute call with me if you're interested.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deborah, for all this fun session. And I really enjoy getting to know you a lot better during our show. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. This wraps up another episode of 10,000 Roads to Financial Independence, and we'll see you next time.